My name is Joel. This happened about 3 years ago, in January. My co-worker Marcus and his girlfriend Priya had been together for almost 8 months, which in our friend group counted as a serious relationship. When Marcus suggested we all rent a ski lodge together up in Vermont for a long weekend, I thought it was a great idea. My girlfriend Dana and I had been meaning to get out of the city for months. We needed it. Work had been slow and the apartment walls were closing in on us both. There were supposed to be 6 of us in total, me and Dana, Marcus and Priya, and 2 other couples from our wider circle. But 2 weeks before the trip, one couple dropped out because of a family thing and the other pulled out the night before booking because of money. It ended up being just the 4 of us. That was fine, maybe even better. More intimate. The lodge was a converted farmhouse about 40 minutes from the ski resort. It had a wood-burning fireplace in the living room, 3 bedrooms, a big kitchen, and a porch that looked out over a frozen lake. Marcus found it. He handled all the booking. I trusted him completely. 3 days before we were supposed to leave, I got a text from Marcus. Short, a little nervous sounding even in writing. He said that he and Priya had broken up, that it was sudden and he was sorry for the inconvenience. He said he still wanted to come if that was okay. I called him immediately, and he sounded hollowed out. The way people sound when something that felt permanent just stops being true. I told him of course he could still come. Dana agreed. We would just be 3 people in a 5-bedroom lodge. That was fine. 2 days later, Marcus told me he had met someone. I didn't know what to say to that. It hadn't even been 48 hours. I asked him if he was sure about bringing someone he barely knew on a trip like this, in a remote place, for 4 days straight with people she didn't know. He said she was great, that I'd love her, that her name was Clara. We drove up on a Friday afternoon. Marcus and Clara were already at the lodge when Dana and I arrived. Clara was standing on the porch with her hands in the front pocket of her hoodie. She was slim, pale in a natural way. With light eyes and dark hair she kept tucked behind one ear. She smiled when she saw us. It was a small, controlled smile. Not shy exactly. More like a smile that had been thought about before it was used. She was polite and quiet during dinner. She answered questions when asked. She didn't initiate much. I assumed she was nervous. Meeting 2 strangers in the middle of nowhere isn't easy for everyone. Dana, who talks more than anyone I've ever met, tried her hardest to draw Clara out. By the time we cleared the plates, we knew that Clara worked in pharmaceutical logistics, that she had grown up in New Hampshire, and that she didn't ski. That last part came out in a way that struck me as odd. Dana had asked if she was excited for the slopes, and Clara had looked at her without blinking and said very calmly that she didn't ski. Not, "I've never learned," or "I'm more of a hot chocolate person." Just, "She didn't ski." End of sentence. We sat by the fireplace after dinner and played cards. Clara sat slightly apart from us on a wooden chair she had pulled in from the kitchen. She watched us more than she played. At one point I looked over and she was staring at Dana with an expression I couldn't read. Not hostile, not warm, just still, like a painting watching you. Marcus refilled everyone's wine and Clara covered her glass with her hand without looking at it. I mentioned the drive had been long and that I was heading to bed. Dana stood up too. We said goodnight. Clara said goodnight back. Just those 2 words. Same small smile. I don't know why it took me until I was lying in bed to realize that over the entire evening I had never once heard her laugh. Saturday was fine on the surface. Marcus and I skied in the morning while Dana stayed at the lodge with Clara. When we got back, Dana was quiet in a way she almost never is. I asked her how the morning went and she said fine. It was fine. Clara was very nice. She said it like she was reading from a card. That night, we played a board game, a trivia game that Marcus had brought. It was competitive, but good-natured. The kind where people argue about answers and groan loudly when they lose points. Dana and I play it often. We know how to win, and we usually do. About an hour in, Dana got 3 answers in a row and pulled ahead significantly. It was good. It was the whole point of the game. Marcus laughed and accused her of cheating. It was a joke. We all knew it was a joke. Except something happened to Clara's face. She set her cards down on the table very slowly. She asked Dana how she knew the answer to the last question. Her voice hadn't changed at all. Still flat, still even. But something behind her eyes had shifted. Dana, confused, started to explain. Clara interrupted her. She said Dana must have already known the questions. She said it matter-of-factly, the way you'd state the weather. Marcus tried to laugh it off. Dana tried to laugh it off. I watched Clara, and she was not laughing. She had turned in her chair to face Dana fully and was watching her with that same still, appraising look. Dana said she didn't cheat. She just knew the answer. Clara said quietly that she didn't think that was true. It lasted maybe 90 seconds, and then Clara said she was tired and went to bed. Marcus apologized to us immediately. He said she was probably just tired. He looked embarrassed and also, I noticed, a little relieved she had left the room. Dana and I stayed up for another hour after Marcus also went to bed. She leaned over to me at one point and whispered, "I don't think she blinks as much as people are supposed to." Sunday morning, I woke up early because the lodge made sounds in the cold. Settling sounds, creaking. I've never been bothered by that kind of thing, but that morning every sound felt too loud. I lay in bed for a while and then decided to get up and make coffee. The kitchen window looked directly out over the frozen lake. The sky was pink and low, and the ice was gray-white and perfectly still. It looked like the surface of something that had been dead for a long time. Clara was already in the kitchen. She was standing at the window, both hands wrapped around a mug, looking out at the lake. She didn't turn when I came in. I said good morning, and she said it back without moving. I made coffee and stood beside her for a moment because it seemed rude to walk away immediately. I asked her if she had slept well. She said she had slept fine. Then, after a pause, she said that she had come down in the night, around 2 in the morning. She said she had just wanted to look out at the lake for a while. I nodded. I said that made sense. She turned and looked at me directly then. Her eyes were very light, almost clear in that kitchen light, and there was nothing behind them that I could name. She said, "It's easier to see things when the rest of the world is asleep." I smiled. I don't know why. It wasn't a smile moment. She turned back to the window. I took my coffee to the living room and sat down and thought about what she had said. Easier to see things. What things? What was there to see at 2 in the morning on a frozen lake? I didn't go back into the kitchen for almost an hour. Sunday afternoon, I found Marcus in the back hallway near the coat rack. He was on his phone, and when he saw me, he clicked it face down against his thigh in a quick, nervous gesture. I asked if he was okay. He said yes. Then he said, Actually, no. He told me something had happened the previous night. He had woken up at around 2 a.m., the time Clara had already told me she was downstairs, and reached over and she wasn't there. He didn't think much of it and went back to sleep. But in the morning, he had gone to pick up her duffel bag to move it so he could find his ski pass, and something inside it had shifted with a heavy metallic sound. He hadn't opened the bag. He just put it down and walked away. I asked him if he had told her he heard it. He shook his head. He said he didn't want to. He said that sounded crazy. I said it didn't sound crazy. He looked at me for a moment and then he looked away and said, "Joel, I don't actually know her last name." I asked him what he meant. He said they had met at a coffee shop 12 days ago. They had talked for 3 hours. She had given him her number. He had called and they had met twice more after that. And over those 3 meetings, over all those hours of conversation, her last name had simply never come up. He had never thought to ask and she had never offered it. He had paid for the lodge using her first name. He had introduced her to everyone using only her first name. I told him this was fine. I told him lots of people moved slowly with personal details, but I could hear how hollow I sounded even as I said it. That night at dinner, Dana asked Clara where she was from originally, trying to make conversation again. Clara said New Hampshire, same as before. Dana asked which town. Clara smiled her small smile and said, "A small one." And then she changed the subject so smoothly. It took us a full minute to realize what had happened. Sunday night I couldn't sleep. I don't know if it was the altitude or the anxiety or both. I lay awake listening to the lodge settle and watched the ceiling and thought about nothing useful. Around 1 a.m., I heard the bedroom door across the hall open and close. Then I heard slow, deliberate footsteps moving down the hall toward the main staircase. I waited. Dana didn't wake up. The lodge was very quiet. I got up carefully and opened our door. The hallway was dark and empty. I stood at the top of the stairs and listened. There was no sound from below, no movement, just the tick of the old radiator near the landing. I went back to bed, but I did not go back to sleep. In the morning, Monday, our last day, I was the first one in the kitchen again. I started packing our things after breakfast while Dana showered. Marcus came downstairs and told me quietly that he had looked in the bag. He said this with no preamble. Just, "I looked in the bag." He had looked in the bag and inside, under her clothes, wrapped in a hand towel, was a folding knife, a large one. He said the blade was about 5 inches. He said he didn't touch it. He just looked at it and then folded the towel back over it and put everything back the way he found it. I asked him what he thought it meant. He said he didn't know. He said maybe she just carried it for safety, being a woman traveling alone. I said that was reasonable. But we were both standing in the kitchen doorway, both speaking very quietly, both with the same look on our faces that I think was a practiced version of calm laid over something that was not calm at all. Clara came downstairs 10 minutes later. She was dressed and her duffel bag was over her shoulder. She said good morning. She asked if anyone wanted eggs. The drive home was 4 hours. Clara and Marcus sat in the back. Dana drove. I sat in the passenger seat and watched the highway and didn't say much. Clara slept against the window, or appeared to. Her breathing was slow and even. The duffel bag was in the trunk. We dropped them at Marcus's apartment. Clara got out, lifted her bag onto her shoulder, and waved. One small wave. Same small smile. Then she walked up the steps and inside without looking back. Marcus ghosted her within the week. He told me he just sent one text saying he didn't think it was going to work out, and she replied with one word, "Okay." And that was the end of it. No calls, no follow-up, nothing. He said he tried to look her up afterward. Clara, Pharmaceutical Logistics, New Hampshire. He found nothing, no LinkedIn, no social media, no public records that matched. He even tried to search the number she had given him, and the carrier lookup came back unregistered. I think about that trip often. I think about her standing at the kitchen window in the early morning. Easier to see things when the rest of the world is asleep. I think about the weight in the duffel bag. I think about the 12 days from coffee shop to ski lodge. How fast that is, how deliberate. I don't think she wanted to hurt us. Or maybe she did and something stopped her. Or maybe I'm still trying to make the story make sense, when the truth is that it doesn't. Not every story has a motive you can understand. What I know is this. She was at a window at 2 in the morning, watching a frozen lake, and I was standing right next to her. And I didn't understand anything about who she was or what she was doing there. I still don't.